I will do a roll call. Last time the clock was an hour off, but it was going faster. It was like weird. I only realized it. So let's do a roll call to establish quorum. Start at the end, just say your name.
Richard Keys.
Richard.
Gene Case.
Jean. Erica Jacobson.
Frank Visconti.
Vanessa Rossi.
Awesome. So we have a quorum. And we will open the meeting at 7:05. And our first order of business is to review and approve the meeting minutes of the April 2nd meeting. They are attached in draft form.
Hold on.
Do you want a pen?
I have another
I
one.
have a pen. No, I have a pen.
Okay.
Dig it out.
So Eric, this is just a nit on Article 14.
Yep.
At the end, it says recommend 6-1-0, then a semicolon, then there's an and, so I don't know if
All right,
that's,
we
I
can,
think we just need to scratch that.
yep,
Just a nit, but it looks like something should have been
got
added
that.
in with the and.
Motion to approve. Accept.
Second.
Any other suggested? Edits or changes?
So good. Yeah,
Excellent.
look good.
All those in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. All right, so that's that. Now, public comment. To receive oral communications from members of the public, members of the public may address the Finance Committee for up to 3 minutes. The Finance Committee will not engage in discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. This agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Seeing no members of the public here, this segment is closed. I will now share written and email communications since our April 2nd meeting. You will see attached to the agenda I handed out tonight is we received one communication from Steve Mangan, who was directed to contact us via Jonathan, who had just helped us with the camera. His concern was regarding the financial committee meeting. To my understanding, they have not been historically live broadcast with the exception of joint select board and finance committee meetings. This isn't a request I've fielded yet. Oh, sorry, that's the piece. Which now I don't know where the second half of this one. Basically, Steve Mangan sent an email asking for a FinCom meeting. So he wants to see, he contacted Jonathan, we were not copied on that first one. Wanted to tune into the last FinCom meeting, but Channel 9 was not carrying it live. The deliberations about the budget and town meeting were of great interest. Although the meeting will eventually be posted, that can take 3 to 5 business days. Jonathan suggested that if the chair requested live broadcasting on Channel 9 might become a reality, so please consider requesting a live broadcast of future meetings. We have, we acknowledged receipt of this and sent an email back to Steve, acknowledging the email, BCCing the rest of the committees, so we wouldn't violate the open meeting law. And we thanked him for his interest in wanting to watch our meetings live. We did discuss it at the April 2nd meeting within the context of the ATM warrant articles and included a conversation with Select Board Chair Alicia Greco. We are sharing this note and suggestion at this meeting. I told him we would share it here. And we are going to, we are actually going to investigate with the town if it's possible within technical, human resource, and budgetary means for FY25. And I asked that he might want to watch the meeting once it was posted. So we are already, Jet has already been sent over to Tracy and to investigate how, if possible, doing that in FY '25. Now, also in your packet, we have a series of communications from Jack Rybicki regarding the technical error that occurred with our April 2nd meeting. The first email that he sent was on Saturday, April 6th. And reports an issue with the audio, where around the time that we were talking about Article 14, the zoning got cut off after Frank spoke. There was some audio overplaying. And upon receiving this, this was forwarded directly over to the Newbury IT department, Jonathan, and it was resolved by Sunday evening. In a subsequent message about this, subsequent but separate,
April 9th? No. What am I looking for?
it's down a few, it's in a different one about the technical recording because Mr. Rybicki also reached out to Jonathan Temple and said, I am fairly fluent in most technologies with great resources, parentheses, peeps, available to me, so please believe any explanation you present, if I am not sure of it, will be vetted through those sources. What is perplexing is how our one camera, one microphone recording went specific rogue on ya. For the record, I made a point to record the first two submitted versions for my own records. That version was posted 2 days after the meeting and put up on YouTube Thursday evening, the 6th by timestamp. The original recording was not posted until Sunday after concerned citizen relayed comment through FinCom member Frank Visconti, the speaker affected for 13 minutes, to FinCom chair Erica Jacobson. What is being asked, what is of directly is the technical reasoning behind such an audio-only issue under the recording circumstances. Your time is appreciated. Most sincerely, Jack Rybicki. The explanation is that they were doing some analysis on it, and the issue was not with the camera itself. It is possible for cameras that have microphone hardware built into the device to develop issues, often age-related wear of internal components from regular use. However, that does not appear to be the cause of or a contributor to the audio disruption in the recording at this time. Currently, it appears that there was a software error in the program we used to convert the raw recordings into a file format acceptable for YouTube and the Comcast TV system. This error resulted in the audio for that segment of the Financial Committee meeting effectively lost. This is the first time we've encountered this error, and it has revealed that our procedure for review prior to uploading the recordings has a weakness. We'll be adjusting our approach to preload, to review, to better compensate, as well as continuing to investigate the software error itself. I apologize for any frustration or disruption this has caused. That is from Jonathan Temple, the IT director. I will, at this point in time, consider these communications complete. The recording is up. It is complete. I've watched all. I've lived through our votes a second whole time. There we go. All right, so that closes that stream of consciousness. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so that's this one. Sorry, I tried to put these in order because I try to keep track of like which days I acknowledge them. The next is a from Jack Rybicki is a public records request for the Lower Green Schoolhouse roof replacement. It was made directly to Tracy, and we were CC'd on his ask. Those public record requests are handled by the town, not by the members of this committee. And it was responded to by Tracy. And that it was based on an estimate between, provided to our DPW administrator. Let's see here, that's this one. There are a lot of back and forths on these. This is there's actually, I will, oh my God. I literally can't. Reading up from the bottom of this one. Let's see here.
At least use both sides of the page.
What?
At least use both sides of the page.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true.
Which makes it more confusing.
I was gonna say, we can afford, we'll use
Well,
one
is this
side,
one
please.
side?
Because
Oh
they
my
get
God,
money.
dear God,
I
this
got a few bucks.
yeah, so, okay, let's see if we can get to, okay, so he also made one, all right, because now the conversations get streamed here. So let's see here. He asked about the, roof replacement
Yep.
at the Lower Green. Then, he received the information. Then he said, he then asked for a question that there was about 40K remaining in NES lock change funds vote at ATM several years ago. Let's not continue the suspect funding. Which then went to, Tracy did respond that the project to change the Newberry Elementary School locks was completed in FY 2020. The town accountant said there are no more funds available in that appropriation. Jack sent back screenshots of reports taken from the year that we appropriated it. And so there were a number of screenshots back and forth of when the numbers were appropriated in FY '21. The lock project was complete. Tracy advises that Jack, when the finance department is notified that a project is complete, those funds are closed out to the general fund and become a component of next year's free cash.
Yeah.
This is how free cash works. We estimate how much something is going to cost. The town votes it, in this case voted it out of free cash. We got the work done, it came in less than what was appropriated, that extra money goes back to free cash once it's complete.
Standard operating procedure.
Yes,
don't know.
I expect this to go on because understanding the above is fiscal methodology, what would be the current disposition / status and future be of the 20K ATM voted in 2022 for the public safety gate at Wheeler Brook Bridge? Thank you always for your time, Jack. Tracy has not responded to that.
That was addressed to Tracy?
That was addressed to Tracy.
Okay, all right.
So Tracy is on vacation and will respond. So, I think
Those all of them, I think.
I think that's all of them. So those are all of the ones that we received per our policy. We review them, we acknowledge them, we do talk about things, and I actually will take I will take Mr. Rybicki's comments as part of something that I think we should cover later in the agenda in terms of town meeting preparation.
So Erica, didn't you send one on the roof?
Yes.
On the lowering, yeah, that's the last page.
Oh, yes, that's the last page?
That's the last
Yes,
page.
that one was, yes, we did respond to that as well, that it was
Right, I think
the $100,000
Yes.
for the, oh, and he's now, oh, wait a minute, sorry, there was one more. It's the HVAC replacement, has an outstanding records request to electronic copies of bids, prices, estimates, or similar documents related to the proposed $2 million HVAC project at NES submitted to town leadership.
right,
So that one's also will be addressed by Tracy.
okay.
So, in order to be presenting information that residents would like to see included in our Finance Committee's ATM presentation, we will accept public comment for the appropriations booklet and Finance Committee presentation. We did set this to receive oral communications from members of the public. The members of the public may address the Finance Committee for up to 2 minutes. This agenda segment will be limited to 30 minutes. Please note the comments must be relevant to the agenda item, and the chair may interrupt comments if they are not relevant to the agenda item. Note, direct questions asked may be addressed during our Finance Committee discussion or at the town meeting presentation. We have no questions. We've not received any questions via email, and there are no members of the public here to ask questions. So, we'll move on to our next item of business, which is the Finance Committee appropriations booklet and cover letter. We actually, this is already all set. It was reviewed independently, combined edits were made, and it will be posted. It's in the hands of town employees who are in charge of photocopying it, making it to a PDF, posting it on the website. Leading us to the last part of our business, which is the Finance Committee presentation. For us to decide what should be covered by whom and kind of when in the flow of the annual town meeting. So, I had a draft prepared.
Did you send us a draft?
I didn't send you a draft, I
Oh,
sent
okay.
last year's because I was kind
Oh,
of
is
the
that what
draft.
it was?
Yeah, it was last year's.
Looking for it.
It's last year's, and I do have a copy of last year's printed out somewhere. But the presentation is typically, the order is typically a welcome to the town meeting and a run-through of the warrant process and the role of town meeting. Kind of the, what is the warrant, who signs it, so the whole process of select board determines what goes on it, determines the order, they vote it, then it's posted. Then we go to town meeting, and what's read on the floor are the motions, what's voted on are the motions read on the floor. So there might be some changes. I know that this year, one of them is going to be moved to no action. It's one of the zoning, or I think it's the cell tower one. That one's since been pulled because new information came, and they're not going to be pursuing that this year. So things like that. Things can come off, but things can't go on.
Right.
That's usually the first part of the presentation. The second part is typically a recap of the operating budget, kind of where we ended up for revenues and what we are looking at for expenses and the percent changes from years before. And then in past years, we've done a little bit of a deeper dive on certain financial articles that we believe need to be looked at with a little bit more depth. Like last year, we did a bid on the town hall as part of it. This year, I actually would like to show, and I have the data, and I wish I could bring up the presentation tonight, but I'd like to show the free cash cycle and explain how free cash works, because I think it's a big misconception, is that free cash is a real thing in municipal finance. We have to account for it.
It's not
And then
free,
how
it's
that
not
happens.
cash.
It's not free, it's not cash, it's unencumbered, and it does, but it kind of follows a cycle, and I have a graph that shows from 2018, which is we adopted the financial principles, financial policies that are that we work with in 2017. And so what that has said is that we want to always maintain at least $1 million in free cash. So what it looks like is that the fall is it gets certified at the end of one fiscal year going into the next. At town meeting, we appropriate funds, and then that remaining sits in free cash. So this year, we are looking at appropriating about $2.2 million, but we're starting with a balance of $305,000. So that remaining will sit in free cash, untouched, unable to be spent, and it will get added to. And I can share this. This is, actually, I do have this part on there. This is what the historical view of, so this is the green is certified, so in the fall, what's certified, what's spent at town meeting, and then what's remaining. So it has.
There's such a jump.
There's a big jump because a couple of things happened. So between 2021 and 22, the ARPA money. So one of the big ways that things get closed out to free cash is that if there's been an appropriation, say we appropriate $50 million, or good Lord, 50,000. I said $50,000 for, say, turnout gear for the fire department. But they're able to get a grant after town meeting says, yes, you can spend 50,000.
Oh,
They apply for a
yes.
grant, and now we only have to spend 35,000.
Right.
That 15,000 would go to free cash,
All the balances at the end of the fiscal year,
go into free cash.
and it has to be certified by the state.
Yes,
And that's why you can't really do much with it until it is certified, which is usually early fall.
it's usually October,
We
November.
get a number, so it includes whatever was already in there, and then what gets lumped in, so.
And it wasn't just ARPA, that's the right answer, of course, but it's, if you could see prior to 2018, this town has made, in my opinion, a radical rise from the ashes from a fiscal management standpoint.
Years ago, it was negative,
It was negative for years.
many years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah, it has been. And since we've had some decent in-house leadership, really, it's.
And you know, our economy and rising home values, of course, and all those, it has been a perfect storm of, but clearly fiscal management.
Yeah.
Since Tracy came aboard
Yeah.
and what have you, it really has changed significantly.
Oh, yes, yeah.
In that time. So, there's a lot more green on the screen than there ever would have been had you.
Mhm.
The town actually is in excellent financial shape.
That's, yeah, it makes,
It really is.
it literally makes the job of this board very different from when I joined, and Jean can tell stories from before that, because,
We used to sit and, no, I don't want to go there.
but that's the thing, is that we have a rigor to it. When
Yeah.
Tracy came in, one of the big things was like, seriously, just getting the accounts in order so that they
Yeah.
actually lined up to what we were spending money on. Also, this is gonna sound counterintuitive, but one of the things was that when she arrived, one of the things that was happening was that if there was, say, a department had money left over, like they hadn't totally spent it, as we got to the end of the fiscal year, there'd be all these orders for things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Because it was the thought that we won't get the money next year if we don't spend it all this year.
Yeah.
And that philosophy was changed. It's, let's be pragmatic, let's order what we need, let's not needlessly spend money we don't
Yeah.
need to. And that has been, that sort of philosophy change actually helps us.
We just have to maybe somehow call it something different from free cash.
that's the-
Well,
That's
help
the
it
state.
be less volatile.
So it's actually.
I know it's called that
It's,
everywhere.
it's actually a real
But I
thing.
know, but it just, that's
You're
what,
right.
it's
So-
volatile because of that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'd like to offer is
Yeah.
I actually kind of want to
Yeah.
offer up these slides if you guys haven't. I think this is, and I'll send this around too. is it?
Yeah.
When I was
Yeah.
in capital planning, the first year,
All right, great.
the DPW building was condemned.
Yeah.
Remember that? And we.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the Scottish Times or CPC, and it was surreal because it was like, well, we have an extra plow, a wood stove, and a four-wheeler. We could sell to pay for the doors that will come all the way to the ground, that will make it to code so that the rats can't get
Oh
in.
my God.
Like, it was a real thing. We're not talking about the 50s. We're talking about
Yeah, no, I believe
not
it.
that long ago.
I believe it.
Those are real examples.
And there were some decisions made to sell town properties too.
Yes.
Which, in hindsight, was not a very good decision.
No. but-
You
No.
know, the Woodbridge School sold for $200,000, it's not worth $5 million or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
not that it was at the time, but.
Well, it went from not generating tax revenue to generating free tax revenue.
Right,
Yeah, so
that
it's,
too.
it's a plus in a way.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I was thinking of definitely doing an overview of free cash to show
Yep.
that we are, yes, this year we are proposing spending $2 million out of it, but we're still holding true. It's actually this one. It fits within our financial management policy, and it will take care of a lot of the issues that we need to deal with this year that we've, we do this, and the amounts that we come up with, one of the things we want to do is, I was actually talking with Leslie Matthews about this earlier today, was that, so if the fire station floor, we've estimated that through capital planning, through all of the different ways, we've estimated it at $60,000. Does it mean that it's gonna be 60,000? It might be 55. Again, we'd rather estimate and then what we think it's going to cost us realistically, so that we don't, because all of a sudden if that comes at 80,000, we have to have if we want to take money out of free cash, we have to have another town meeting.
Right,
So we don't
yeah.
want to bare bones the estimates on any of these things to the point that we can't actually then deal with them and pay for them.
Yeah.
So if there was a thought to say like, well, that $100,000 for the lower green seems too high, let's not do it at that. And someone, says, why don't we just say 20,000 because that's what my roof cost. And I'm not saying my roof, I'm just saying as if someone, like,
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
that's where there's,
Yeah, it's like one of the few times where, an estimate coming in high is actually not a bad thing. It makes you want to lean
Yeah.
in that direction. Yeah, I get it.
And there's still a bidding process.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You're still getting qualified bids. And hopefully we'll come in significantly under. that
Right.
number.
Right.
and again, if there's a grant to be had for that, that would be another place. And again, then this money was that appropriated out of free cash and would return to free cash.
Which has to be voted on to take it
So
out
that- yeah.
following year.
Exactly.
Or in a special town meeting, it has to,
Yeah.
so it's controlled by town meeting, it's not somebody
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, so I think that kind of going through this would be, do you guys think this would be helpful to go through at town meeting?
It is.
It would for me,
Yeah.
but
You have-
that's because I'm new, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right, so honestly,
Yeah.
you are, both have a better finger on the pulse of any confusion or lack of understanding of the meaning free cash from the people that you know.
Mhm.
So like if you say, hey, there's a need for this, then there's a need for it.
I feel from anecdotally from talking to people in the community that any any clarification about
Mm.
or kind of bare bones definitions or about
Yes.
procedure or about is useful, is helpful.
Most
'Cause I
people
think-
don't understand.
Right, I mean,
Municipal
even, like,
finance.
to go back to the fact that we were all getting inundated by phone calls and emails about the, like, the cuts at NES or whatever, people in the community don't understand that we don't actually have control over that. So the basic, procedural things that there are misconceptions and I think would be helpful. Because I do think that sometimes the town meeting people launch right into the issues with the,
Yeah.
regulars.
Well, anything that brings more people from the fray to voting, our voter turnout still sucks
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
for years.
Right.
And I don't think we're unique in that aspect.
No,
No,
but But that's something I
But-
think we're actively trying to change. I mean, I can only do so
Yeah.
much, but I know personally I'm gonna bring at least a handful of people that have never been before.
And I will say this as someone who has done it. Bring both adults in the family and bring the kids. They are welcome. They can sit there. My kids have grown up going to these. Sometimes we've been able to get, and I don't know if it's possible, if there's sometimes like a babysitting room that used to happen at NES.
Right.
But that's something we can see, but but it's also been one of those things that it's just really helpful to have two voting parents there,
Yeah.
both if it's a dual, if possible. And it is completely, JR's son has come, my kids have come for years. Cole's actually bummed that he's not home for it, because he'd actually get to vote this year.
Maybe we can talk after or something, because I
Yeah,
personally, that would be helpful. And I know, like I said, a handful of people that are coming that have never been before and have very young children, so if there was, I know we're transitioning over to Triton and not NES this year, but, so I don't know if that's, it's
Yeah.
easy to do, but yeah, we should talk about
that would be, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our voter turnout, I actually just have the numbers from last year. Article 17 last year, which was voting money into the town hall account last year, we had 499 people vote on that vote, and 60% of the people there voted to put money into the town hall account. And then by Article 18, which was one vote later, apparently 33 people left, because we had 463 people vote, and that was 53% in favor, yes, and 47 not in favor. So that it didn't meet the 2/3 majority to move the project forward.
That's another explanation that people need to understand is which ones require 2/3.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Or the 4/5.
4/5.
There's one
a
that,
4/5,
yeah, one's gonna
so
require 4/5.
That's to pay the old bill.
There's nothing coming out of stabilization, so there's no 2/3.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
a
there's-
simple majority and 2/3 out. And then we're adding $100,000 to that.
I think Article 16, I was listening to the select board. They
Yes.
said that was a 2/3 vote. Somebody,
16, oh,
When I was-
zoning, no,
This-
not zoning.
Not zoning.
What is it?
it was the surface landfill, including the 5 feet below.
Oh, yeah, that has to
Solar.
do with the solar,
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
but it's in that one. 17 and 18 were simple votes, but that one was a 2/3 vote.
Mhm.
So,
So Vanessa, do you have any other thoughts of like what would be helpful? Like,
for tonight or for the town meeting?
just for town meeting?
Yeah, so, I don't know if it's on the agenda to, so I know personally in the crowd of people that have like young children at NES, there's still a vast majority of people that don't understand what's going on with the cuts that, you know, the STEM cuts and all that stuff. So I think, I definitely think going into that would be helpful.
Okay.
And, if we can.
Brian will be there.
Brian will be there.
Yeah, okay,
So-
yeah, I assumed
Yeah.
He would probably be the one to address.
He can be the one to
anything
address
related
it.
to the school budget.
Yes.
'Cause it just comes to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just meant also
Yeah.
like maybe very briefly touch on the procedural aspect of that, like what happens next.
What happens
Yeah.
next? So, yes, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good part is that I think we can talk about that because education, and I will tell you these slides because the reason I didn't send this is because I like kind of work on this in like piecemeal fashion when I'm in between like other stuff for work, and that's not our town, but I'm hoping to get a picture of our town.
Is that your draft or is that last year?
This is my draft. I need to change up the colors. If I do that same presentation again, I might lose it.
Yeah, oh, okay.
It's 10 years old. What suggestions do you have?
Should we address, I did a little research on, because we've heard this about taxes, you know, the issue of taxes.
Yep.
And I did a little research on just the neighboring communities here.
Mhm.
And in every case, the town of Newbury has the lowest tax rate. It also has one of the highest values in terms of homes. It also has one of the highest incomes in the 10 surrounding communities. I mean, and that's in 2024, so it's pretty recent. I don't know whether whether some of that information in the dialogue needs to be incorporated or not. But we've got it, I mean, it's, I can, let me look at it before the average tax bill as a percentage of income in Newbury is 8.6. The next lowest as a percentage of income is 12.12. And it goes up to Amesbury at 21%.
Wow.
It also relates to the value of the house as well, value of the single-family homes. I mean, Newbury's is not taxing anywhere beyond its means. In fact, in some ways, the people who wrote the letters about education made a very good statement. We're not spending enough on education.
I was just gonna
We are
say,
not,
if we.
and we have not been for a long
How
time.
do we compare on education spending as a percentage of overall revenue in Paris and all those towns? Did you look at that one? 'Cause I think we're all around 50 points. How do we compare in terms of education spending as a percentage of overall revenue to those towns? I think they're all around 50 points, aren't they?
Oh, it could be, but Newbury at one time was 70.
Yeah, I don't think people are ready to understand.
I mean, the shift has occurred. Part of it is because my own opinion is when you have a regional school district, you have 3 communities, and very often there is not necessarily stated, but there is it's sort of to go to the lowest common denominator. Who is having the most trouble,
Yes.
and how can we make it possible for them to pay? So that, over years and years and years, that's been sort of the approach,
Yeah.
whether stated or not. And after so many years, you run behind not just hundreds of thousands, but millions.
It's a deadly combination, right? Because you have what you just stated as presumably as one in the con column is very much in the pro column for lots of other people, right? That is like, well, it's a system of checks and balances that keeps you from going crazy. Because, not by design, but we have a populace that we have so many empty nesters. We have so many.
Yeah,
So many people say, well, I don't even get trash pickup, right?
Yeah.
So, my mill rate may be low, but my valuation's through the roof. And aside from the plowed road and hopefully getting a policeman at all hours of the evening, what else am I really buying here? And there's a very prevailing attitude. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying, I think they enjoy the regionalization of the school district because of that, because it does, it's perpetually it's always bottom dollar.
yeah.
Which is, of course, coming to a day reckoning with the fact that our high school is
Yes.
crumbling.
Right.
That's to say nothing of curriculum and programs and everything else, that's
Yeah.
just to talk about the physical
Yeah.
envelope. Which you would like to think wouldn't happen otherwise, but a lot of these municipalities are terrible at maintaining things in general. Because it's like, it's like if you buy a fancy boat, you say, well, it's gonna cost me 4% of the value of this boat to maintain this vessel every year. Do we spend even 1% in maintenance and valuation of the overall value of the building? Like, probably not. And I think all the municipal builders say you have to plan on 3.5 points annually.
Yeah.
We have never been anywhere near that number.
No.
No, not at all.
I'll never forget when they opened Triton, the guy that came and speak at the opening made that very point. He said, this building, you need to set aside, I can't remember the number, but people went like this when he said that.
Yeah.
He was absolutely right. This was back in 1971,
Yep.
you know.
Yep. It's not
Well,
it needs to be done.
my other, I guess if Brian's gonna be there, obviously he'll address this as well, but I mean, I assume maybe there'll also be some general comment made about the application that failed this year.
We can get the straight statement on that, of like, this is what we're planning on. I can get
But again,
that.
maybe like a one sentence overview of how because I cannot tell you the vast spectrum of rumors that I've heard about everything from people saying like, it's great, our new high school's getting built, to what? To like, oh, I think, I heard that it didn't, we didn't get approved and we'll never get, everything in between.
Yeah.
So basic understanding of that.
Would be helpful to let Brian know.
I will,
Yeah.
because I'm gonna be over there for the alt assessment meeting
Yeah.
on Thursday, so I'll get some time with him, I'll ask
Just
him
so
about
he-
that.
I'm sure he has all the information.
He has, and he can,
Yeah.
And it comes from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
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 I'd welcome
I think
him to
Vanessa's right,
speak
the
about it.
budgeting, school budgeting is a bit of a black box.
It is.
Not intentionally,
Oh, that's right. Oh, yeah.
not,
I have a whole presentation.
not intentionally, but it just is, and
Well, but, I mean, even if there's a basic understanding, like, people basically understand that we applied for aid
Right.
and it got rejected. Right, but then, like, I was talking to somebody just last weekend, a person whose kids are young, and what she was saying, she was just trying to do the math in her head about when if her children would go to a new or refurbished Triton at any point. And nobody knows how to do that math. I mean, we don't know, the answer is we don't know, but like, we kind of have some idea,
Yeah.
but more than.
I do know that Brian can give us a written, like, he can write it out for us and he can read it or we can read it. And it actually is probably a really, like, that might just be good for him to send another reminder out to
Yeah.
all of the towns
Yeah, right.
as they're going into town meeting.
Right.
Here we are with the Triton
Yes.
project, because I know, I'm not on that distro list because I don't have kids in the district anymore. So, but I think that would be really helpful to say where we stand now, because we
Yeah.
have put in another application.
Right.
We'll probably hear in December whether or
If
not
this
we're,
happens,
and if this
yeah.
happens, this is what we're
Right.
doing. And if not, then this is what happens, or then if this is the larger conversation, but I think that's really big. And I think also as you said, the school funding being a black box, it's nutty making, and I've spent way too much time in this, but I have a whole kind of thought process, because the formula being the two-step process, what Jean just said about those numbers about our tax rate, our percent of income, taxes as a percent of income, the value of our homes, all of that has led to why we have to pay more for education this year as a percentage in the town. Because this year, so the operating assessment, the amount that's split between the three towns, is based on the minimum local contribution and the above minimum, so the percentage of and that's split by the percentage of enrollment. So the historical pattern is that when you look at that over the last 5 years, Salisbury always pays the greatest share, Newbury pays the least, and Rowley kind of falls somewhere in the middle. That's just kind of like over the historical pattern, when you take those numbers. The problem is this minimum local contribution, and I might have this one here. Oh, I might not. I don't know if I have this one. No, this one's the one that I can't get to. But the big problem is that the minimum local contribution numbers in real dollars has not increased over the years. It taps out at around $21 million this year. It's really not greatly changed since 2008. In 2008, minimum local contribution was 82% of our operating budget, and now it only accounts for 58% of it, leaving that remaining 42% to get split between the towns by their percentage enrollment. Now, our enrollment over that same period of time has dropped precipitously. I think knows these pictures.
Okay.
And what we do each year for that second calculation is we take the total number of students, and so for this year, it's 2,156 students in the district. Newbury accounts for 28.6, Rowley 32.8, and Salisbury 38.5. So then that's how we split that other piece. So what happened this year is, what happens is that minimum local contribution number is widely unpredictable. You don't know what that MLC is gonna be each year. It gets told to us by the state in January. So we can't even know in like October what it's gonna be. So this year, Newbury's difference is ours went up, our total minimum local contribution between the three towns went up by 5.5%. Newbury's went up by 7.9%. Rowley's went up by 5.7%, and Salisbury's went up by 3.7%. So that same percentage increase overall doesn't hit the towns the same way.
Right, yeah.
So this year, we're the ones, a couple of years ago, it was, so 2 years ago, it was Rowley. Rowley saw theirs go up from from FY '23 to '24 by $500,000. And ours went up in real dollars, went up close to $300,000. So that's really what ends up, we have that no predictability. So we can't even like think ahead that way. So that's a really big problem, is that, so we got hit hard this year, and that's the zero sum of it, is that it only just gets distributed between the three towns.
You're not gonna use that. You're gonna get lost in the
Nope,
weeds.
exactly. This is for this. But I think the bigger problem is that nothing changes the fact that our state, we don't know state funding. Like, our state funding is,
Right.
as a proportion, is dismal.
Yeah, that,
If I read your initial statement,
That graph.
your initial question correctly though, it seems like you and your colleagues have budgeted questions at the actual operational level.
Yeah, yes,
In terms
Yeah.
of
Yes.
yeah, which is,
Why do things get cut, why
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
And that is, I would think that a really, reasonably succinct but bulleted list of questions
Yeah.
to Brian,
Yeah.
well in advance of the meeting, saying, we don't need a special presentation, but could you address these issues at town meeting?
Right.
Or something to that effect
Mhm.
would
Okay.
would best satisfy their, I think it's probably a little bit of crunch time, right? But I
Right.
think it probably would, there isn't gonna be a special meeting for that presumably, but that would be the best way to get those questions addressed. Like you were talking about the weeds level, like
Mhm.
the actual specifics, why would this be cut over this, or why would this be?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's entirely appropriate.
No, it's totally
you know,
appropriate.
I mean, but
It's totally appropriate.
yes, I can put something.
Because that's the part that I think is the blackest part of the black box,
Mhm.
I think. Because the operational questions is everybody has their own things that they feel are important. There was a woman, I forgot her name, but I think she works for Google, and she wrote a really compelling plea about not cutting STEM and whatever. Like, those are the types of people that, that's great, like that's a start, but like ask those specific questions.
Yeah.
Why this versus another thing, and get an actual answer to those questions.
another huge factor is the increase in costs for special education, which I support wholly. But if your if you track it, you'll see that special education costs over the years go like this, and the regular budget tends to do this. In other words, if there's $1 million and every year it goes up 2%, but special education goes up 10%, then the other piece,
SPED is the doomsday machine
yeah.
of that.
And it's not funded as well as it should be.
No,
No.
There's some circuit breaker money and stuff like that, but it's still not
and
funded
it
at
has
all.
to be, there's a cottage industry in making sure that, trying to increase number of outplacements and things like that, and they're incredibly
Oh, God.
expensive.
Yeah,
I have to tell you, one of my experiences, it cost $1 million for one child for the 12 years he was in school. One child,
there
$1 million.
was,
Yeah.
there have been times in the last couple of years where there's definitely been,
I'm
that
not,
has been a reality, that based on where the family residence is, there was someone that was, there was a temporary residence here that would have had $1 million swing. So that's
and, you
been,
know, it's not that
it's,
you
it
can't,
is,
you shouldn't do it, you should do it, but it's just the resources.
it's again, the state funding for something that the burden is put back on the towns. And that's a lot of what we're dealing with, both in our own operating budget and the school budget, is that because we fall into this area, we're not one of the high need schools, we don't get, when extra money is doled out by the state, it doesn't proportionally hit us.
Yep.
That's a big part of it too.
Was they unsell it? Like,
Oh my God.
That's what bothers me. Marijuana revenue, oh, you guys are gonna be spending money, you guys are gonna need even money. All these other things, it's like we never see.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, well, I don't know, it's lip service.
So I was gonna say, if you look at the Triton budget, the final one that came out, there's a nice overview right at the beginning on the budget process.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Oh, you saw it? Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I mean, it's true, like, there's all this documentation, but I don't know if it, you know, it doesn't necessarily get read by the.
It's usually how does this all affect my child? It's really-
Yeah.
Yeah.
To some extent, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
it's a lot.
it's old, it's different perspectives on all these numbers. All the perspectives really are valid.
Yeah,
Because everybody's at a different point in life. I'm gonna be an empty nester next year. I'd like to think it wouldn't change my perspective that much, but realistically, of course it does, you know. Because you go from thinking about the average cost of education per pupil for your town to writing hundreds of thousands of dollars in college tuitions. And like, that's going to change your perspective, you know. But it doesn't mean that those concerns that I had 2 years prior are any less valid to everyone who still has kids in the school district. Yeah, it's, and I, you know, empty nester living out on the island, or, you know, saying, wow, my taxes are through the roof, and I don't, you know, I get plowed roads, like, their perspective is valid. It's different from mine and different from yours, but it is valid.
A lot of those empty nesters that haven't had kids in school for 20-something years, they think the schools are just like they were 20 years ago, and all the special education
Yep.
requirements that come down from the state.
And
Totally
really, I
different.
hear another story, well, you know, when I went to school, we had 43 kids in the class, or whatever. It's
Yep,
just,
yep.
Yeah.
all right.
There was we had a former
You
FinCom member who kept asking me if the big question he kept asking me was like, do your kids feel safe going to Triton? And I was like, I don't know what Triton was like when your kids were there, but I don't, that's not really, that wasn't really high on my like things that I was like worried about Triton, like.
No.
Larry kept asking me that, and I was like, I don't get that, like, that's never been a conversation,
No.
but
everybody has a different,
a different perspective.
Yeah.
my kids had a great schooling, Newbury, Triton.
Anything about municipal priority, anything else that we, I mean,
Where do
article,
we expect we might get some questions?
so article, I think the ones we're gonna get questions on are, well, there's always, so education, this is also the part two, is that education is gonna be in, it's part of a blanket, it's part of Article 5, which is the whole operating
Yeah.
budget.
Right.
So when that passes, the education budget for Newbury passes, we're the first town meeting out of the 3 towns. If the budget passes in 2 towns and fails in the third town still has to pony up and pay. So even if we, through some craziness, somebody said, hold on this and to decrease it, but I don't think that'll happen. I haven't heard that we aren't supporting this. It's not likely, it'll likely pass.
Yeah.
And then it passes Rowley, Salisbury's gonna pass it too. Like that's, but it's the two thirds of the towns, and then the last ones have to pony up. 6 and 7 seem to be easy, I think. I think where it's gonna get, where there'll be questions is around, Article 13, the free cash.
You guys found that somewhere.
And they're grouped by, they're all free cash article. They're all coming from free cash, which is why they're all put together in one.
Yeah, that's a big grouping.
I do know that we are going to, there'll be a separate action to move the $499 bill, because that's subject to our forfeits vote. The rest of these are all simple majority. So I think in parts of this, if there's questions about the floor replacement or the turnout gear, I believe that we will be looking to our new fire chief to discuss those and those needs. I believe that Marshall or capital planning will likely talk to the library projects and the elementary school projects. And then the Lower Green Schoolhouse roof replacement will be spoken to by the Historical Commission. But I will verify that. $14 is not likely. I don't think we should weigh in. I think that this is a planning board one. We took a position or
Yeah.
made our rationale, but this is really on the planning board. Yeah, to make that. And 15 is the one I believe is not going to be, there's gonna be no action's gonna be taken on 15.
Well, that's the cell tower one.
That's the cell tower
Yeah.
one, that one's not going forward at this point in time.
It's been kicked down the road for years now.
This is a different one, it was
It's
because of the placement of one of the towers by Triton, there was
Yeah.
so it's getting further steady.
They were gonna put one many years ago, in a similar, this one was going by the town garage, right, wasn't it? The cell tower?
No, this one's going by Triton.
Oh, it is?
I
Okay.
think that's one, there might be one by the town garage too, but
Yeah,
there's
there
the
were
one.
two, I thought.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
okay.
one that's going by Triton that then
Oh,
they
okay.
decided to, there was a school committee meeting the night after the warrant got voted, and some people brought some information there, and so
Okay.
everybody decided to pull back and
Okay. So
revisit
the
later.
one- The one near
Is that
town
some sort
barn
of
is,
3G conspiracy or something like that?
say what?
Was that like the 3G conspiracy that affect us as well? 3G causes COVID.
And then I think the only other one is Article 21, which is PEG, the PEG access. But I believe that that is going to be most fully explained by the select board.
Typically, the select board make the motion,
Yes.
and then whoever else, anybody can second it, but that shifted, it used to be finance years ago, but the select board does it. Does anyone know, do we have a record of the votes of the select board?
Yes,
On each
they're gonna
article?
be in the,
Oh, okay.
they're in the appropriations.
Right.
The ones that,
But
I don't think
it's.
I did write them down if you want.
I have them.
Oh,
I have this, I have a version
Yeah.
that this is gonna be their,
It's
the.
in. She sent
Uh,
one out over the weekend,
oh, you did?
I
Eric.
did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's okay, but it's,
I
here's the
must have
official
it
one, it'll
right
be
here.
out tomorrow.
Probably have it right here.
I think they went unanimous to recommend, up through Article 13, and then Article 13 was 3 voted to recommend the free cash, and 2 voted to not recommend. I believe it was
Correct.
Dana and Leslie were the not recommends.
Correct. And in 14, there was a one no vote.
14, there
Oh, I
was,
had it here.
yeah, 14, Dana was a no vote on that one.
Correct.
I have it, yeah.
Okay.
And then Peg was 3 in favor of recommending, 2 opposed, and I don't recall the split on that.
Which one?
Peg access.
The Peg Access Article 21,
Dana and Leslie said no.
okay.
Yeah. All right.
And then I think they all said no on the dog.
Correct. They wanted to do some updates during the town meeting,
Yeah,
because they didn't like some of the work, but they could get it fixed. And then, so there was another, 19, there was a one no, and that was Dana.
what was that?
19.
Yeah.
It was 19.
Oh, that's the one about the Finance Committee and Capital Planning.
Yep.
But I think we've got a good outline.
Yeah.
In order to keep us to fewer meeting, I don't think we need to meet again. Our next meeting, we're gonna post a meeting for 6:30, the night of town meeting, mostly because if all of us are together in a group and we don't have a meeting posted, we can be called in violation of the open meeting law.
And there is sometimes a last minute
Thing that we
but
might
not-
need to
not
talk
often.
about or
Not often.
whatever. So it just means that when we get there, we sit down and we can talk to
So
one
we
another.
post a meeting means we meet, we meet earlier. at
We
6:30.
just, we post the meeting and then we can get there,
Got it.
Okay.
so,
So I
That way
gotta
we
talk to Gretchen. I was gonna be checking people then. She's gonna have 4.
oh, okay,
Well,
yeah, then that's fine, because you'll be
Peg's.
there. As long
I'll
as
be
you're
there.
You're
there,
there.
as long as you're there, that's fine. We
Yep.
just need to cover ourselves so that if we talk to one another, we're
Yes.
not in violation, because anytime, we can't get together in a group of 4 of us ever,
Oh, yes,
outside
you
of
can.
here,
For a
without.
drink.
Exactly.
That's like kind of one of the things. So, I'm willing to do a draft and then send it around and have people comment and incorporate comments,
Okay.
if that works.
Yeah.
Works great.
Okay. Yeah, so,
If anybody wants a copy of this that I did, you can pull it right off the Department of Revenue, the tax
Awesome.
information,
Oh, yeah.
if you want it. You just print it out, that's all you do.
perfect.
That was me,
Yep, awesome, thank you.
give you a picture.
All right, any old business? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:08.